I would just say because Instagram or whatever allows you to follow students long after high school and they graduate. We used to be like, bye, and they would just disappear.
Mhm.
Now you're seeing their story continue.
Yeah.
I would say stay connected to former students as long as you can through the journey, whatever happens, good, bad, ugly, deconstruction, hate, Jesus, whatever.
Mhm.
Because when you're present in their life from junior high or high school on, when they have that moment later where they need somebody and you're still a part of their journey, they will come back.
Mhm.
And you have been faithful.
Hey everyone, you're listening to the Other Pastors podcast. I'm Pastor Colt Straub, and you may have noticed that we are missing someone today. Pastor Jonathan Brim, of course, our youth pastor, our resident youth pastor, is late today, or he's not going to be here today. Imagine that, a youth pastor being late for a meeting. It's never happened before in history, but you know what? There's a first for everything. And today I'm actually excited to be joined by our guest, Josh Griffin. He is a lifer. We love talking to people like Josh on this podcast, somebody who has been in ministry, youth ministry specifically, for over 30 years. He's served in many different churches, including Saddleback Church. Now he serves at Mariners Church in Irvine, California, and we are just excited. He is a youth pastor to youth pastors. He's a leader to leaders. He's written many books, including 99 Thoughts for small group leaders and several other programs like YM University, helping train up youth ministers. And he's also the co-founder of DYM, Download Youth Ministry, providing resources for youth ministers to be able to up the game in their youth ministry. So again, we are excited, or I should say, I'm excited to be able to talk to Josh today. I'm used to talking in the plural because I usually have a co-host here with me, but I'm thrilled to have you here, Josh. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for asking. I was just thinking how perfect it is that Jonathan bailed on us today. Classic youth ministry move. You can't count on them. Like worship, arts pastor, executive pastor, you can count on them. But a youth pastor, they're kind of flaky. So be glad I even showed up today.
Exactly. I'm just thinking my lucky stars. You know what I mean? At least one of two youth pastors showed up. That's probably a pretty solid statistic.
Exactly. It's literally like, it's an Easter miracle is what has happened. So it's like Christmas morning. You're welcome.
It's a beautiful thing, man. It's a beautiful thing. So tell our audience about yourself. I already gave a little bit of your past a little bit, but I want to hear a little bit from you. Like you, obviously you're from Mariners Church right now, and we just came out of Easter. Tell me about your Easter weekend.
Yeah, it was incredible. I first of all, great to be on the show. I'm honored to be here. I definitely consider myself one of the other pastors as well. And so honored to be sitting, shoulder to shoulder with you and hanging out. And even though Jonathan bailed on us, I'm going to try to let that go.
That's okay.
We just finished Easter as well. And, it's the Super Bowl of the church. And so our church has a very different philosophy. I serve at Mariners Church in Irvine, California. So 30 years in youth ministry, 3 churches, a small rural farm church in Michigan, Saddleback Church for 13 years, and then now here at Mariners. And Mariners has a different philosophy. A lot of times people are like, on Easter, families need to be together. And I have always ascribed to that view as well. Our pastor, Pastor Eric, terrific guy, he said, no, why would we expect families to be together when people are visiting for the first time? Why would we not give their junior higher the best experience we can give them by having a junior high service at the same time? That's how our church happens to do it. And I was thinking, A, that is the nicest thing a senior pastor has ever said to their youth pastor.
No kidding.
And B, I also cracked the code. He wants more seats for adults in his building at the same time. So he's winning, but also a very kind thing to say. So we did it all. We had communion, baptisms. I spoke at 7 youth services this past weekend. I was exhausted. I'm sure you were the same, but we saw everybody. Like it is like the reach of your church or youth ministry, in my case, is much larger than the weekly attendance. And on Easter, it feels like, oh, that's our reach number. Like that's the 90% instead of about 50% of our reach. This is it. And so it was a really special weekend, and we introduced some new traditions in our youth ministry, and it was really special. So yeah, how was your Easter? Did you guys hang in there too?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great time. Of course, I'm the worship and creative arts pastor at my church. And so, of course, that is like, again, like you said, the Super Bowl. We had 4 services, 1 on Saturday night, 3 on Sunday. And again, it's just amazing to see the whole community come together. And our church just goes above and beyond, just like every other church. And God moved, and we saw, I think, like 60 plus salvations throughout the weekend. So God was honored, Jesus was lifted up. And so I feel like that hit the mark as far as production, and of course all the things that I'm involved in specifically. I felt like, of course, we put a lot of work into that. We work on it for like 4 months, just like Christmas, just like so many other worship pastors. Like it's this January 1st comes and we're like, okay, Easter is the next. What do we do?
Yep, exactly. So Christmas is in the rearview mirror. It's go time. Let's talk
exactly.
Easter.
So by the time we get to Easter, it's like, hey, we are ready to go. And we came in and executed it pretty well. And again, God moved in power, and people were saved. So thumbs up. And then I also got to make note of the fact here for all of our listeners that my church and me particularly, we're part of a group called Ovation Worship, our worship department. Okay. We put out original music and put out a new single this last weekend. And by the time this podcast is out, 2 more singles will be out. So a single called Jesus You Are, a single called He Is Here, Jesus, Jesus, and then Surrender All. All 3 of those songs are available wherever you stream music, on YouTube, on Apple Music, on Spotify. It's all over the place. So check out ovationworship.com.
That's great. I'm going to open another tab right now and have Ovation Worship open. I want to jam. That sounds great.
Absolutely. You're going to love it. Again, the new song that we just came out with this last weekend is Jesus You Are. And man, God just gave me this song about 6 months ago, just talking about how Jesus is revealed throughout the Old Testament. He's revealed throughout the New Testament. He reveals himself continually in the lives of his people today. And it's just saying, Jesus, you are everything. And
I love it.
So it's great tune. But that being said, that just made my Easter weekend, my Easter experience. I don't know what we were thinking when we said, hey, let's release new music at the exact same time as our busiest release or our busiest weekend as far as Easter, because we were just going constantly. And when we weren't working on services, we were submitting to playlists and doing all the things that you do when you release music. But you know what? Again, Jesus is being glorified, and not every weekend is like that. You know what I mean? So we know that there's an end point to that, and we can rest and relax now.
Yeah.
And
one of the things I like about adult services or main service, I don't know, whatever, big church is how I still call it that. I'm 50 years old. I still call it big church. But anyhow, one of the things I like about it is in youth ministry, I believe that everything is the message. So the countdown, the environment, the student involvement, the volunteers, how they show up. Yes, the message, the music, but even like the videos, the tone, the welcome, like to me, it's all the message. And what I love about Easter is the adult service is the most intentional that it's ever going to be. Like it's the warmest, best, sharpest, maybe highest level of production or whatever, I suppose as well. But like in youth ministry, we're shooting for that every week because we know that we've got a very small margin for error with a teenager who visits for the first time, right? Any family is at any level of the service, but in youth ministry, teenagers can be ruthless. They're like deciding every 20 seconds if they're going to show up ever again. And so I feel like Easter is the bar of not just, scope and smoke and lasers and all that stuff, but it's really the bar of like intentionality and caring for people that show up, being excited when teenagers show up. And so I just love it because it feels like we're on our A game. We probably should be every week, but that's a week where we don't miss,
Exactly. Yeah. There just has to be so much intentionality. And I love what you said, even just how everything plays into it. Like I talked about, like, right before each service, we do a prayer meeting. We gather all of our first impressions teams. That's everybody out in the lobby, from the people serving at what we call Jehovah Java. Of course, just like so many other churches, we have some clever wordplay for our cafe. And we have everybody, we say that the person riding the golf cart around the parking lot is the first impression. And so many people in this day and age, just like you were talking about, teenagers determine every 20 seconds if they like it or not. The same way most people determine before a service even starts, hey, this is a place that I can see myself coming to. And so, yeah, there has to be so much intentionality in how, what that means, how they're being greeted at the door, how they're being picked up in a golf cart, the conversations that are happening out in the lobby. And yeah, there has to be so much intentionality just in general on that day. And yes, it'd be wonderful. And I think we should aspire to do that on a weekly basis. But yeah, on Easter, it's definitely everybody comes in ready to give their A game, ready to give their best. And yeah. So I want to hear a little bit. I know we talked about Easter and your past a little bit, but I want to hear how you came into youth ministry. Like what brought you into youth ministry? I know you've been doing it for 30 years. Just tell us a little bit of your story.
Yeah. I was in Bible college primarily to play football and get a business degree. And then my junior year, the dean of men and the coach of the football team both looked at me and said, Josh, why are you going into business? And I said, I'm already starting businesses. Like this is my passion. This is my heart. They're like, no. You're a business that maybe will support ministry or be a skill that you have. You are made to be a youth pastor. And I was like, what? That is not in the plan. And I'm already in my junior year. So I'm in deep now. Like there's no way. And these men, both of them in particular, were two of the most influential in my life. I would count my father and an elementary principal, maybe a youth pastor along the way as some of the other influential men and, of course, women in my story as well. And I went home and I prayed about it briefly because I wasn't, that spiritual about it. And I went to some friends and I said, this is so crazy. They keep telling everyone I'm bumping into says, you're supposed to be a youth pastor. And I tell my fiance, we had just gotten engaged. And I said, how crazy is this? Everyone. And she starts crying and says, of course, we all know it. Everyone knows it. You're supposed to be a youth pastor. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. So I went to my dad, who had been a pastor for years. And I went to my dad and I said, Dad, am I supposed to be a youth pastor? What is going on? And he gets emotional. Well, and his whole life, even being a good man and a good pastor and an even better dad, consistent, all of those things. He had always said, don't be a pastor, don't be a pastor, don't be a pastor. Don't feel pressure to be a pastor because I am one, so many fathers and sons and daughters, whatever. And so I said, I think I'm supposed to be a youth pastor. He gets emotional. He starts crying and says, I've known it since you were a kid. I'm so glad other people see it too. He said, I just didn't want you to mistake my voice, your father's voice, for your heavenly Father's voice. And I went, I'm going to tell that story and embellish it and make it a little better for the rest of my life. And so most of that's true. Most of that's true.
I'm sure it's gotten grander and grander as the years go by.
Oh, absolutely. He wept and it fell to his knee. No, but God let me know kind of late in my education that and to my wife's credit, we've also been together 29 years, been in youth ministry for 30 years. Like, wow. We've been doing ministry ever since. We've had 4 kids. They're now through the youth ministry age, all the way up. They're adults now. We're going to be empty nesters in a few weeks. And so while I may look deceptively young, I think youth ministry actually keeps you young too. That's a whole nother story. Okay. God has been very good. So 30 years, 3 churches, and still in it. So still in it every day. So youth ministry is in my blood. I took a little season off to start and help build Download Youth Ministry, which is a website that helps youth pastors all over the country. So fun. But the church it calls me. Like, students count. I was at the hospital on Easter weekend visiting a student who had a concussion at a soccer game and then had to have surgery. We did 7 I did baptisms this weekend. I love it. I love it. And I want to do it the rest of my life. I don't know how long you could do youth ministry. at my age, but I'm going to test the boundaries
Hey,
apparently.
I think that's wonderful. You know what I mean? Again, we've had so many different conversations, and Jonathan, our other youth pastor, he's been in youth ministry for like 20 years, so he's just a little bit behind you, but he's the same way. He's pushing the bounds of how
Let's
long you can do
go.
it. Because just like you know, whenever I hear you talking about youth ministry, you ooze like you have this passion that is very definitive for ministry, for God, for serving the kids, serving the kingdom of God. And I think that's incredible, and that's honestly what it takes to be a lifer in ministry, to be somebody who sticks in, and not somebody who's, so many youth pastors are like looking for the next rung on the ladder. They want to be the senior pastor, or they want to be the executive pastor. Or they want to step up to whatever is the next thing. But again, when I hear you talking, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you're all in till the end. Like
You got it. 0% of me wants to be a senior pastor, like
yeah.
0%. I feel like I have a shelter and a defense from some of the craziness that's out
Uh-huh.
there. I also don't carry the same weight, and I think when I was an early youth pastor, I was like, I could be a senior pastor. I would do such a better job. I would, and now that I'm this far in, I'm like, oh, I'd be a terrible senior pastor because I
Uh-huh.
have a little bit of that people pleaser in me too. I would feel the weight of like tithing and giving and the budget. Right now, largely, not all the time, but largely, I don't have to carry that weight because someone else is. And
Right.
they tell me what I can spend. And sometimes that changes, and we have had cuts and all that stuff too, whatever. But like, I don't carry the emotional weight of the entire congregation. Youth ministry is heavy enough.
Hmm.
And I know my lane. I'm going to stick in it. I'm very thankful for senior pastors. I'll say this. I'm also thankful for youth pastors who start there and
Hmm.
then go on to other things. Like,
Sure.
I think when I was growing up, they're like, be a lifer, don't leave. I'm thrilled that there's executive pastors, worship pastors, senior leaders, campus pastors, whatever, that are killing it, that
Absolutely.
think like a youth pastor, that remember those things. Like our senior pastor was a youth pastor, and it shows in the
Yeah.
way he leads. He builds great teams. He's generous with our budget. He believes in us. He talks highly of us. He thinks good about us before thinks bad about us. That is a
Uh-huh.
gift right there.
It
And
really
so,
is.
yeah, so I'm just thankful for youth pastors that are a few years in and move on. That doesn't bother me at all. I'm a lifer. I know
Of
my lane
course.
too, but I'm thrilled. Just when you leave youth ministry, keep thinking like a youth pastor. The whole church is going to benefit from that.
Absolutely. You know, our pastor has always, he says multiple times because he started out as a children's pastor, he's been a youth pastor, and now, he's a senior pastor. And he says multiple times a year, I make no apologies for the amount of money that we spend on our youth ministry and on our children's ministry. And it shows because we actually have we have a building, like our main church building, and then a separate building. And it was a miracle
Wow.
that it was built that is just as large. I mean, I can't think of, I think it's like 15,000 square feet. That is our youth building. And
Wow.
like, it's because we have that sort of investment and that sort of support.
Yep.
We're able to see incredible things. And we have like 250 kids on average in our youth ministry.
Amazing.
And God is doing incredible things week in and week out. That would not happen if we didn't have the support of our senior pastor, who, like you said, started as a children's pastor, moved up to youth pastor. So yeah, if people stay in youth ministry, if they stay in children's ministry, or if they advance, just as long as we continue serving the cause of the cross and the
You
cause
got
of
it.
Christ, that's what it's all about. So I want to hear, like, again, 30 years is a long time to be serving in ministry. I'm sure you have. First of all, let's talk about some ministry fails. What's the craziest thing that you've ever experienced on stage or off
uh,
stage, just in
I,
general?
I have experience. I do a lot of like emceeing and hosting for conferences and events
Uh-huh.
outside of the church as well.
Okay.
And I have so many stories that are so bad, I will never tell them. And I
Oh, come
destroyed
on.
like the recording as well. There's no way. I don't want to be the pitch your tents guy on YouTube. I don't want to be that guy. Have you seen that video, right?
Yeah,
No
yeah.
way. No interest
Not
in
that
that. So
guy.
I destroy that footage when it happens to me on stage. But I will say this, I have a good one off stage. We were heading, it was my first youth ministry position. We were heading to an overnighter, which again, I love lock-ins. I love overnighters. I think they work. If they
Yep.
weren't effective, don't do them. But they're anyhow. So this is like 30 years ago, right? We're on
yeah.
our way to a lock-in, and we have this dark blue bus that the church has bought. Instead of yellow, they painted it dark blue. And we drove up to a arena football game to kick off this series of events overnight. You're going to go whatever, bowling, roller skating, arcade, I don't know, whatever. And the lady driving the bus, the volunteer who drove school bus, mind you, pulls into the stadium, and there's a yellow concrete pole, hits it, and runs down the whole side of the bus. So now we have a dark blue bus with yellow stripes down the side. Then throws it in reverse, panics a little bit, backs out, yellow pole on the other side, matching stripes on that side, and then we hit a deer on the way home from the event and wrecked the front of the bus. So I have some youth ministry stories, and that one, 3 accidents in one night, was pretty legit. One of my other favorites was we were on a missions trip, and we were in France, Paris, France. We had to get from whatever, downtown somewhere to this major train station to get to London and fly home. And the pastor's kids, 2 boys, we were like, everybody stay together. You know this. This is like youth ministry basics. Right. Everybody stay together. Don't leave. All of a sudden, the 2 senior pastors' sons disappear, and the train is leaving in a few minutes.
And of course, it's the senior pastor's
sons. Of course it is. So, I'm like writing my resignation letter as we're roaming the streets. And we get to the train station. We can't find them. We're going to miss our flights in London if we don't get on this train. So we board without 2 kids.
Oh my gosh.
I know. And eventually we're on the train is pulling away. And I remember, I will never forget, when those 2 senior pastors' kids came bounding up the stairs of the train like nothing had happened and met us as we're pulling away. It was a miracle, what it was, because I wouldn't be here today. The exactly. Would kill me.
You've been fired. Nobody'd be able to hire you again.
That's like, I would be buried in a shallow grave. Yeah, exactly. But I just have tons of youth ministry stories because I love teenagers, and we're taking big swings, and we're taking junior hires internationally on missions trips. Where we push as hard as we can. A lot of people think, or they'll say something pithy like, you're the church of today, not the church of tomorrow, and everyone feels good about that statement. Right. And so do I. So I'm not discrediting, you or whatever have said it. I'm not discrediting that. But that's an easy thing to say to a group of teenagers to validate them. That's very hard to do in the church itself. So when we empower junior hires to run the streaming, run a camera in our adult services, trust an 8th grader to that role, that's like putting it into action. Easy to say, that you're the future, that you are the church today. Great. Well, prove it. Let a teenager, we had a teenager a couple weeks ago in our high school ministry who did the message. He gave the message to hundreds of high school students that were gathered that night. And there was no adult on stage. It was incredible. Students really listened to their peers. So that's a huge win. And it was a little bit of a risk for sure, but it was incredible. And it said to every student in the room, it said it without having to say, you're the church of today. It proved it by putting them on stage. So I would challenge anybody, the longer I'm in youth ministry, the more I believe in teenagers making a difference and serving and giving and what we can learn from them as well. So, turn over social media to a student, or let students run the camera, or challenge students with a big trip internationally and watch what God does. Just don't leave them behind at the train station.
Don't leave them in a different country unless you want to change vocations and change your name and be put in witness protection.
Exactly. Other than that, believe in students.
I love that. And honestly, that is what ministry is all about. I think so many times, even in worship ministry, there's always I have certain people that I know I can put on a microphone and it's just going to be knocked out of the park. But if I never give anybody else the opportunity to take a swing at it, we're not actually building people up. And so there's always that balance of I want to make things great and I want to make it as good as possible. By the end of the day, if I can, I have to be able to put people up there who need to be able to take a swing at it, who have to be able to try, because we're supposed to be imparting in the people. We're supposed to be discipling people.
Well, and I'll admit that we take a little bit of a hit sometimes. All of a sudden you see a camera jitter and I turn around, I'm like, what's going on? But then I smile because I'm like, that's a sixth grader. And they bump to the camera with their knee. We will all survive, everybody.
Exactly.
We have a sixth grader running, so that kind of stuff. Like even like we have a sixth grader every week that runs sound effects. So if someone rings in on a game we're playing, there'll be a buzzer sound or the lights will change to green or whatever. So it's just a little student role. And sometimes they're late, or sometimes the switch isn't quite as good or whatever. Mm-hmm. I don't care. Like if our production, I don't want it to be bad. Trust me.
No, I know what you mean. But there's a balance there.
A little hit for students running, I'm 100% all in. 100%.
Oh, I love it. I love it, man. So I want to hear also from just in that 20 years or 30 years of ministry, the highs, the lows, just in terms of like, what was something that happened, maybe even in the early years, some experience that you had that like locked you in to be a lifer in youth ministry. Like it happened and suddenly you're like, you know what? I'm giving my life to this.
Yeah. I think the moment that I come back to that has been consistent from way back till literally this weekend, I just love when a student gets baptized. I just think it's so powerful. It's very meaningful to them. It's also meaningful. It's also memorable. It's a sticky moment. Like Jesus created these sticky, memorable moments. Like when you are baptized, that is extraordinary. Like I have a staff member who works on my team now, who I got to baptize when she was 13 years old or whatever. And she remembers that. She has the picture of it. Like it is a rite of passage. So that to me is super, super powerful. I love sticky moments in youth ministry anyhow. I like trying to create memorable moments, rites of passage. I just think that's an interesting way to learn and have faith stick, in a world of deconstruction, but also an enormous religious curiosity or spiritual, wandering or wondering. So baptisms 30 years ago, the same exact movement now 30 years later, baptizing a dozen kids this weekend. I've added a little splash at the end. Okay, it's a lot of splash. We baptize by immersing people. And so, we also sprinkle because I make a huge splash. I just think it's fun. And we celebrate, we cheer. I want to get the crowd soaked. Like it's just the best. To me, the junior high baptism is a special moment. So let's make it different than the adult. A nice little plunge.
So what are we talking? Go hard. Are we talking water cannons? What are we talking about here?
Maybe it can.
Nerf guns.
I like your idea. Yeah. We got like super soakers. And,
hit him again.
If you see a picture of me baptizing someone, there's always a nice one where they're going under. And then there's one where I'm just throwing water in the air after they come up. I just love it. It is whenever I get defeated, and there have been some incredibly difficult and low times. I mean, youth ministry in particular can be invisible. And I like in the grand scheme of the church, if you're doing your job well as a youth worker, no one's talking about the youth ministry. There are no problems. Everything's going good. We like the teaching. The guy or gal leading it is incredible, whatever. Like, and you can feel invisible. I love it when our youth ministry is invisible because it means we're not in trouble. But the flip side of that is when you feel invisible, you can be very lonely, very defeated. You can wonder if you're making a difference in the world. You can look at the budget, kids ministry, massive budget, worship ministry, cult, massive budget, junior high ministry, just below like cleaning supplies for the bill.
It's like toilet paper.
Yes. Your picture on the website, it's like, there's the maintenance person and then the junior high pastor. So there are some low times. We know where we are in the hierarchy of things, but it is incredibly important. And to me, baptism just snaps me back into this is why I do what I do.
Yeah.
like seeing changed lives, seeing students know and follow Jesus, seeing students transformed by the Holy Spirit. Um, it just brings it into razor sharp focus
Hmm.
again and again. And so even this weekend, I'm like, I did 12 baptisms. I could do this the rest of my life. Now, Easter Monday, I didn't totally feel that way, but
Yeah. No, I get
but
it.
now it's a few days later. I've recovered. I'm okay.
We're in
Uh,
ministry hangover mode at the moment for a couple of
yeah,
days. You're like,
exactly.
you don't want to do anything. Like, don't talk to me. Don't text me. Don't call me.
Exactly. No, baptism is the thing for me. Do you have anything like that in ministry where that just brings your whole calling back into focus too? Do you feel like you've got something as well?
Absolutely. Well, again, baptism, of course, is a huge thing. When I've had the opportunity to baptize all four of my kids
Oh,
in this
love it.
ministry, which is incredible. I've had the opportunity to baptize a few other people, and not only if I'm doing it or if somebody else is doing it, just seeing life change.
Yeah,
That's what it's all about. Of course, I'm a musician. Of course, I love doing the music. I love doing the production. But
yeah,
man, when you see, like we had a guy who plays bass for us even now, and for the longest time he was just the drummer's son. He was tapering on faith, like struggling with it his entire teenage years. And honestly, I just wanted to get him in the environment. A lot of people are kind of they have to pass a certain litmus test to be on the stage. I just felt with all of my heart he needs to be in this building. He needs to be in this environment, and if we don't give him the opportunity to play, he'll go away. We won't see him again. And so
yeah.
he served for a while, and then one day we were sitting backstage during one of the messages, and he just started asking me all these questions about Jesus and things he'd been.
Wow.
And I had the opportunity. It took me a couple of Sundays, a couple of conversations, but was able to lead him to the Lord. And again, just seeing life change is what it's all about. It's what we talk to so many pastors and youth pastors. Again, other pastors podcast is youth pastors, children's pastors. It's everybody but the main guy. And sometimes ministry gets long and the seasons get hard. And sometimes you go through dark times where it feels, like you said, invisible, where it feels like
Yeah.
nobody cares what I'm doing. Is this really the way that this is my legacy? Is this what I'm spending my life doing? But then you have those moments, those, like you said, those sticky moments that keep bringing you back to this is why we do what we do, because people are being changed and God is using my life to make a difference in the lives of somebody else. And that's what keeps bringing me back.
Yep, same here. I'm addicted. I'm in. It's the best. I've given my life to it. I want to be a really, really amazing dad. I want to be a great husband,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to be a pretty good lifelong youth pastor. And so, and largely in that order. So,
Absolutely. Well, you've got your priorities straight. So I know you've been doing youth ministry for 30 years, and then you you co-founded a ministry or a website called Download Youth Ministry. Tell me a little bit about that.
yeah, Download Youth Ministry, it was birthed out of like the variance in resources and budgets for youth ministry. So when I started in youth ministry, our budget was $5,000 for the year. And then
Wow.
whatever else we could fundraise through car washes and whatever, 30 kids. It was a great ministry. Loved it. It's where I learned about youth ministry. Is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But that literally had almost no resources, although I was very thankful for what I had.
Sure.
Then I came out to California and was at Saddleback, and Rick Warren and Purpose Driven Life. And it was like, we can do anything we want. We could dream it and do it. And there was this disparity between the church I grew up in with 10 kids, 5, 10 kids, the church that I served in with 30 students, and then this mega church with mega resources.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, and with my buddy Doug Fields, I said, what if we could create a youth ministry website where youth workers make the stuff and they put it up online, and it was super cheap. So it was like, you go to a conference and you're like, that was amazing. Conference level is just always next level.
Of course.
Or
Yeah.
you go to a mega church or a giant event where they bring in a bunch of churches together. Whatever. Everything just feels next level. Could we do next level stuff, but then sell it for $5?
Mm-hmm.
And could we put a sermon series up there? And could we do graphics? Could we? And there's no warehouse. This is we started this in 2013, 2014 is when we kind of took it seriously. We bought the domain in 2011, so it's been around a while.
Sure.
But we said, what if there's no Amazon or there's no warehouse? There's just an Amazon server. And when you click it and you're like, I want that game, or that video is hilarious, or I need a lesson for tonight, like whatever, something happened. You click it, you download it, it's yours. You take our name off of it. And it started as a couple buddies hanging out doing this thing to try to elevate, all youth ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And then we said, what if it was more than Doug and Josh and a handful of people? What if it was any youth pastor could submit their resource? And then it exploded. And it's been so much fun for the years and years of doing this now. Now, of course, the internet has caught up. You could start an e-commerce store in about 20 minutes. We built ours from the ground up. It can handle hundreds and hundreds of youth pastors at once. It's crazy. But the key is we believe in the stuff we put on the website. We enhance the graphics. We make sure it's edited. We do raise the bar a little bit.
Okay.
But now there are thousands and thousands, probably 10,000 resources and 1,000 authors. So, and a youth pastor, the youth pastor makes a little supplemental income as well. When something sells, everything gets tracked and goes back to the youth ministry or to the camp scholarship fund or to the youth pastor. Youth pastors aren't notoriously overpaid by any means. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
And thousands of amens happen. Yeah. So a little supplemental income, but also kingdom impact. When I write a talk, like I wrote a talk for Easter, and it was on book of Matthew. Jesus says, is your foundation on sand or your foundation on rock? And Easter is the rock that we build our faith on, whatever. Wrote this talk. I put 12 hours into it. It was good. It was sticky. I had this illustration with like little bluey figures, and it was so much fun.
Nice.
We have killer graphics. It was this Minecraft theme, and what are you building your life on? So I do that talk, and we had record attendance, the highest ever.
Mm-hmm.
But that's great. But then that talk goes and dies on my hard drive.
Yeah.
And now it's junior high and I'm lazy, so I might recycle it a few years from now. That's true. That's true.
Once all the students have moved on, yes.
Yeah, just give me 3 years, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and it's back.
There you go.
But what if I could put that on Download Youth Ministry and 10 or 20 youth workers could download it this week and teach, make it their own, of course, but teach it, and then the impact would be expanded. Or what if, we created a great game or whatever, and it was downloaded hundreds of times or thousands of times. And so now youth workers take their best stuff. We don't want everything. We just want the best stuff that you create, put it on DYM and, make a little money, which is great to supplement your own income, have a side hustle. But the kingdom impact is crazy, where your 10, 12 hours of effort saves someone 10 to 12 hours. And now they can go to the junior high volleyball game, or they can make that hospital visit, or they can go home at night and be with their family, and or a volunteer who's paying for things out of their own pocket with zero budget, which is so many churches, by the way.
Yeah.
They can buy something for a couple bucks. It crushes in their youth ministry. Kids even ask me, they're like, how do you come up with all these games every week at youth group? Or where's your inspiration? I'm like, I'm just that good. They have no idea that Download Youth Ministry exists, and I use it every week.
That's
too.
amazing, man. I absolutely, the thing I love about this site is just that if you think about the kingdom of God as a whole, we are all working towards the same thing. And so many times it's like, well, it's that building over there or that church over there, and they're doing their thing and we're doing our thing, and it's almost like a competitive feel.
Yep.
But the thing, if you talk about the church as a whole and the resources that we all have, they are all God's. And how many times have I spent months working on a production? How many times have you spent hours working on a sermon? How many times has XYZ, like we spend so much time working on these resources. And as you said, we use them once, we never use them again, or maybe a few years down the line, we recycle them. What if the church down the street or the church, across the nation can do it, can reuse that, and it saves them the time. I love that you said that, as far as now they can go make that hospital visit. They're not stuck doing that stuff. And I think that that's such a brilliant and kingdom-driven mission. And I love that. So thank you so much for being a
Thank
part
you.
of that,
You
for
bet.
making that happen.
It's also just really fun. Like,
Sure.
I am constantly amazed. Like, I find myself, I would pride myself on being a creative. I like to tinker and inventor. I like to build.
Mm-hmm.
I am blown away by the creativity, the fun of stuff that youth workers make.
Mm-hmm.
And I constantly go through the submissions, and there's hundreds. And I was in there yesterday going, this is wild. But they're so clever and so good. And I'm just like, I type in something in the search bar. I'm like, I need something on forgiveness. And I've got a fun game. I've got a lesson. I got a video. I'm like, yes, 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 $12. You know, if you're a member, it's cheaper, and then you get discounts, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this is like, you'd have to be crazy not to use Download Youth Ministry. It just makes everything, I would say, easier and more effective at the same time.
Absolutely. Now, I have to assume that you have some stories as far as, like, again, that youth pastor that has a $500 a month or a $5,000 a year annual budget. I'm sure you hear feedback from them all the time. Do you have anything like that you might be able to share?
Absolutely. I would say I have several of them. One, I'm amazed by the number of people doing volunteer youth ministry. So I don't know if they were like a mom in Missouri who is like, where are the restrooms? And they're like, you're the youth worker, or whatever. And so I'm like, what? She's freaking out, going, I got to come up with a lesson. I don't know anything about these kids, but my son is in the youth ministry, so I wanted to help out. So many, some of the best youth ministry in the country is not happening at the mega churches and the flashy churches and the people that are on the speaker circuit. And we hear it all the time. There are good people doing incredible ministry that will be completely forgotten on the national stage, unknown, mm-hmm. but that are making the deepest impact in the trenches. And you're never going to hear about them. They're never going to write a book. They're just killing it every day. And so we have youth workers that my favorite one is a guy who lives in Amish country in Indiana. I didn't even know that existed. It does.
Wow.
And he creates the best resources for the nation through Download Youth Ministry. And he's helping out Amish kids in the middle of nowhere, Indiana. You're never going to know his name. He's never going to speak anywhere. Mm-hmm. And he is changing thousands of churches. There's a lady, Sabrina is her name. She is one of the best writers of material, sermons, devotionals. She is phenomenal. No one knows her, but they use her stuff all the time. It's incredible. So, and then one of my favorite ones is a guy told me this just the other week. One of the authors on Download Youth Ministry funded. Some will fund, a vacation we could have never taken, or we bought a dirt bike for myself, whatever. Those are great. I love those too. But one's helped fund the adoption of their child through the resources and the money that they had made from selling stuff on Download Youth Ministry. So I love that there is money involved, and I think youth pastors will benefit from that. Mm-hmm. But the kingdom impact is also extraordinary. And rather than letting something die on your hard drive, put it on DYM, especially, flaky youth pastors like Jonathan, who couldn't even show up today. Right?
Today. Exactly.
Yeah. Hopefully he can show up and put some stuff on DYM.
Absolutely.
Just kidding, Jonathan, wherever you are.
We're going to put on the pressure.
That's right.
I love that. So I am curious about this one thing, though, that I have to imagine that you've experienced a little bit of an arc in terms of people's mentality of using pre-existing materials. Like, I think about the pastor who's spent a youth pastor who's spent every single week studying week after week and might have a little bit of initially a hesitancy to want to use somebody else's material. And I would imagine that you've experienced that overall, like just a more openness. And I think now that people have the internet and it's becoming more a part of our daily life, and especially with AI and enhancements and all of that stuff, we are now more open. But I have to imagine that's been very apparent for you in ministry.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say some youth workers pride themselves on being the one that creates the talk. Mm-hmm. So they'll grab a game or a video or a devotional book before they would download a message, the message feels very personal, or they're paid by the church and they feel like that pay is for my spiritual disciplines and creating talks for my kids. I love all that. I don't even disagree. I think that's great. I like creating my own talks too. But I'm amazed. Like I taught on joy earlier this fall, and I just went on DYM and I was like, okay, there's 5 talks on joy. These 3 look the best. I grabbed all 3 of them. And it just gave me a huge starting point forward. Absolutely. So even if you're like, I'm the creator, I want to build, I want to study, so do I. But there's nothing wrong with being like, oh, look at the way they worded this, or what a beautiful passage I would have never been able to find, or look at the way they use this object lesson. I'm going to see. So I'm constantly, it used to be beg, borrow, and steal. Now it's like, I just go to DYM, search it, and then download it, because why not? It's so cheap and inexpensive. And someone has poured a lot of time into it that just moves me down the field. Like I want to score a touchdown. I want to throw a touchdown every weekend. So a good kickoff return doesn't hurt the quarterback, as I know I go very sports analogy here. A good kickoff return starts the quarterback, makes it easier for them to score a touchdown. Well, I'm the quarterback, and DYM is moving the ball down the field for me. I'm going to score. And so I was amazed at how easy it was. While I still very much made it my own, I still definitely did my own studying. It was just a powerful tool. We just launched a curriculum as well. And so if you're like, I don't have time, especially a volunteer youth worker, which is the vast majority, or part-time. If you go to CoLeader.co, you can also download a full-on curriculum that gives you a countdown video, a game, the lesson, small group questions. It gives you the order, the flow. Like we try to make it as easy and as cheap as humanly. I shouldn't say cheap. That sounds bad. Inexpensive. There you go. But it is cheap. But the quality is still super high. Here's why. Doug and we're still youth pastors. And so we're in it. And so while there is a financial component to it and enhancing resources, having editors, that's very real expense. Even just the website and transaction, real money there. I get it.
Sure.
We want to make things as powerful and as inexpensive, but also like this was made by youth pastors for youth pastors. We want to help you win. And so we're constantly amazed at the youth workers that haven't heard of Download Youth Ministry. Every time we're like, everyone's heard of DYM by now. And then the people that need it most haven't heard about it yet. So, if you're at a conference or an event, or you're a savvy full-time, whatever, you've discovered DYM. Great. But that mom in Missouri who would die for a resource like this has no idea we exist. And so I feel like it's so fun because when people discover DYM now, they become all in lifelong fans because it just helps them do their job more effectively than they ever thought possible. So I love it. I'm never going to get tired of it, and am thankful for the way God has used it. And I use it every week. So what can I say? I'm still in it too, man.
That's amazing. I love it. I love it. So obviously you probably look at youth ministry now from almost a 10,000-foot view. Like you're able to see what God is doing in youth ministries all across the world, I would imagine. What excites you about what God is doing in youth ministry? Like the trends, all that
Totally. Totally. I would say, first of all, I'm a hopeful person and optimistic, and I believe the good news changes lives still. So I'm a little old school as well. Very old, actually, 50. What can I say? But I think there is a renewed interest in spiritual things that we've definitely seen from our students. There is a lack of community. Students are more connected and lonelier than ever. So I think there's a hunger for the community that we offer, the Jesus that we offer, the good news in a world that all the news is bad news. I feel like youth ministry is more relevant and important than ever. I would also say, junior hires are the new high schoolers. So, and high school is the new college. So let me explain. The high school student is now having the crisis of faith that used to happen in college, right? You go off to college and your professor would rock you
Yeah.
and, hashtag God's not dead. That used to be the way.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in particular because of cell phones, right?
Yeah.
The smartphone has brought those questions of faith and how many different paths lead to where and why do we believe Christianity, attacking kind of the apologetics questions in high school. And then the high school stuff, which used to be like temptations and whatever, pornography, all that stuff, that has all moved down to junior high because the smartphone has opened up that world to them. So I started in high school ministry, really both, but high school ministry at Saddleback. And I felt like I'm just running the high school playbook now in junior high, and it's totally working. So what I would say, if you're in junior high ministry, you've got to address more intense and uncomfortable things sooner. And so you've got sweet, innocent kids who have never looked at pornography. They don't have a smartphone. Maybe they're homeschooled, whatever. And you also have, an eighth grader that has been exposed to things that you and I were never exposed to until our adult life. They're experiencing that as, a 12-year-old now. Then you also need to make sure that there are apologetics and strong foundational truths. Teach the word. Just because you're a big church doesn't mean you have to be shallow by any means. And so I would say don't be afraid of teaching God's word and getting apologetics injected into your teaching curriculum, whatever. It's more important than ever because they're not going to go off to college and lose their faith. It's going to be crumbling in high school. So you got to go after it and challenge them sooner. And then I would say, because of the deconstruction movement, and which again, I am so hopeful towards, that's just how I'm wired. I know the bad is there. I see the bad. I know that the light will chase away the darkness. The darkness doesn't stand a chance. I would just say when, because Instagram or whatever allows you to follow students long after high school and they graduate, we used to be like, bye, and they would just disappear. Now you're seeing their story continue. I would say stay connected to former students as long as you can through the journey, whatever happens, good, bad, ugly, deconstruction, hate, Jesus, whatever. Because when you're present in their life from junior high or high school on, when they have that moment later where they need somebody and you're still a part of their journey, they will come back. And you have been faithful, you have listened, you've prayed for them, you've seen some scary things that they've posted and you're like, oh my goodness. And when they have that moment later, and whatever that crisis or a death in the family or questions or seeking again or whatever, they're going to come right back to you. You are on the front lines and you had those moments, those rites of passage. They're amazing. But you're also the only spiritual person they have a contact with, and it's been years ago. And when you get that DM or that text or that message that says, hey, I know it's been a long time, but here's what's going on in my life. What a beautiful moment we have.
You've made that investment and now you're there.
Exactly. Yeah. So that investment will pay off maybe years or, I have the long view now being an old guy, that decades from now, you'll see the return on that investment. So be faithful, have the long view of youth ministry, stay in youth ministry if you can, but if you don't, think like a youth worker and, make sure after a crazy weekend like Easter that you get a little time and margin for yourself too. And so I did that same thing. I was at Disney, taking a break, relaxing, hanging with friends, being with my family, because I want to be in it for the long haul. I got to take some pauses and breaks too. And so I'd encourage you out there, don't, red line yourself into the ground. If you're going to stick with it for a long time and grow old in youth ministry, you got to show up and then you got to turn it off. Just like apparently Jonathan did to us today.
Exactly.
He turned it all the way off.
All the way off.
He's not even here.
Well, in his defense, to be honest with you, like we do just before Easter, we do a huge 2-week garage sale at our church.
Wow.
And actually it's a huge thing. And the youth ministry does it to raise money for the mission trip. They raised $37,000 this year.
Wow.
A garage sale works. And it's like a 2-month process though. And so him and his wife, Jennifer, are amazing. They do incredible stuff at our church,
It's
but
awesome.
they're more exhausted than I am because they have been leading teenagers and putting on this huge, again, 20,000 or 50. I don't know how big our facility is down there.
Wow.
Full of people from all over the community donate stuff, and then they all just bring stuff and buy stuff over 2 weekends. It's an incredible time, but it is so much work, and so I don't fault him at all for being exhausted or tired or forgetting things or anything, because that's just what we do sometimes. Life happens,
No, I get it. I just want you to know that this youth pastor showed up. That's all
Yes,
you need
he
to
did.
remember. I showed up, okay?
Yes, I love it.
And it's much earlier out here in California too. Come on.
I know. I was gonna say, like, we started at 11 here in Oklahoma, so 9 a.m. for a youth pastor. That's actually pretty impressive.
Not bad, right? It's a
On a
miracle I'm even in
Wednesday.
the office.
Yeah. I love it, man. I love it. Do you guys do church on Wednesdays or?
We do, yeah. We
Okay.
do our life group on Wednesday night. So we'll divide up our 6th and 7th graders and 8th graders into 2 different rooms, and we'll run a separate program. Our leaders do most of the work, honestly, on Wednesday nights, though. We don't have much program. It's more relationship and curriculum and small groups. And then every Saturday and Sunday, we'll do 5 services. So 2 on Saturday, 3 on Sunday. So Easter was crazy with 7, but I do 5 every weekend, so it wasn't that crazy. I know.
Yeah.
So it's a lot, but I love it. And you'll be seeing me in the years to come too. I'm not slowing down. Let's go.
I love it, man. I love it. So again, we've talked, and we're wrapping up here pretty soon. But as we mentioned, you've done Download Youth Ministry. Now you have CoLeader.co. You have YM University. Are you still doing that?
Yeah, we are. It's a youth ministry curriculum, training curriculum. So if your youth workers need to be trained, it used to be able to gather them together all the time. It was easier. Now everybody's schedule's so crazy. They can take individual courses. So the church pays a couple $100, and then every volunteer can be added and go at their own pace. And it's simple stuff like how to remember names. What is relational youth ministry? What are some of the safety procedures in our youth ministry? Just like basic nuts and bolts stuff. There's over like 60 lessons and tons of courses. There's stuff for student leaders, for parents, for newlyweds. Like YM University, you don't really buy a course. You could, I guess, but you really buy a license for your whole church to have access to everything. And then it's only $99 a year after that. So you keep adding volunteers. But it's just, we do that. And we also started the National Day of Volunteer Youth Ministry Training, where it's a big national event. 20,000 youth workers will be trained this year by some friends that Doug and I bring in. It's trainmyvolunteers.com. What we're trying to do is just help youth workers win. Like in every area, whatever you got cooking, like I got to train my volunteers, we got you covered. Or I need a game for tonight, we got you covered. I need to fill in the blank, download youth. I need a curriculum, we've got CoLeader. Like because we're in it, we uniquely know the needs of youth workers, and we just create tools, and then we use the tools in our youth group too.
And I love that you said that, like, once people subscribe to those things, it's available to the whole church, because there were some of those things, they're very practical. It's not stuff that you learn in Bible school.
Exactly.
It's how to remember names. I want to take that course, because I'm that guy who walks up to 90% of the people in the church. I'm like, hey man, how you doing?
Yeah. Dude,
hey,
bro,
buddy, how you
what's
doing?
up, girl?
And just scared to death that one day they're going to be like, what's my name? And I'm like, I have no idea.
I know. Well, everybody has a capacity, and some people have an extraordinary capacity, like 50 kids, and all 50. Good for you. 100? Yeah. Wow. But no one's going to know, the reach of your youth ministry, even like a 30-person youth ministry on regular time, that's over 100 students. And so how do you remember names? And how do one of my favorite lessons is called the 10-minute rule. And it's just take the 10 minutes before the service. Don't set up. It is what it is. Be with students. The 10 minutes after a service or a program, don't clean up. Be with students. Like, this is your ministry time. So it's simple stuff like that all of a sudden the light bulb clicks and you're like, oh, this is unbelievable. This training was so worth it. Or you're like, I don't know what to train my people on. Well, just grab one of the videos and play it. And you'll get some good training. You'll look like an all-star too, and you did nothing. So again, we're trying to save your bacon, that's for sure. Let's pray. God, thank you so much for the chance just to hang out today and ultimately celebrate you, Jesus, and what you've done in our churches and through our lives. We just present ourselves to you and ask you to use us. God, thank you for everybody listening. May they be encouraged and challenged. May they remember that every moment that they invest for your kingdom, as simple as a cup of cold water in your name, is for you and for your kingdom. Help us to be faithful workers for you. Help us to think like youth workers and invest in this next generation. God, thank you in particular for those that do feel invisible today. May you see them, and may they recognize that you are their audience, and God, that you are seeing them and you're proud of them. They're faithful servants in the trenches of ministry today. We love you, Jesus. Bless us, and we are thankful for your blessings as well. We ask all those things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Hey, if you're watching online on YouTube, you might have noticed a scene change is that we are no longer in studio, but I'm outside in my backyard. I was editing this podcast together and realized we lost the last few seconds of it due to some technical glitches. But again, I want to thank Josh Griffin for being with us. Make sure you check out Download Youth Ministry. And if you've enjoyed this podcast, if you're enjoying the Other Pastors podcast, make sure you like, you share, you subscribe, because that's how we keep spreading this to more people. And don't forget, serving up, down, all around. You're not the main guy on campus. You're the other pastor, and this podcast is for you. Thanks so much for tuning in.